Shabbat Shalom. First and foremost, giving all praise, glory, and honor be to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Rakaha, Kwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, better known as GMS, who rule well. Peace and salutations unto the hopeful elect, the tabernacle of David, starting with the 144,000 and the rest of the men, women, and children out of the 12 tribes, whom Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai will ultimately have mercy upon in these last days. This is your brother Tsa'S, residing from the branch of the Great Millstone here in Melbourne, Australia. And I wanted to do a quick follow-up lesson based upon news and prophecy as we take the things that are going on across the world and we cross-reference it to the Holy Scriptures, all right, going into the prophecies. So this is a TikTok that I was able to catch from Fox local news in Atlanta, Georgia, going into TSA has announced that a $45 fee will be issued to any traveler who does not pretty much register to have a real ID. Okay, so let's listen up.
If you're taking a trip soon and you have a flight, this one's for you. Traveling rules just changed and this one could cost you some money, so listen up. The real ID deadline is finally here after years of delays, and now the TSA says if you show up at the airport without a real ID or another acceptable form of ID, it's going to cost you some extra money. So let's make it all simple. Real ID is a more secure version of your driver's license or state ID. It came from a 9/11 Commission recommendation that was signed into law back in 2005. Although there were multiple delays, it's now in effect. So here's why you should care. Starting February 1st next year, if you don't have a real ID, passport, or any other approved ID, you'll need to use TSA's new system called Confirm ID. And that's going to cost you $45 for a 10-day travel window, plus extra time. You don't even like paying for the extra bag, so I know you don't want to do that. You can pay the fee online before your trip or at most airport checkpoints, but you should expect delays either way it goes. So if you're looking to avoid all of this, here's what counts as an acceptable ID. A real ID license, a passport or passport card, global entry or other trusted traveler cards, DoD IDs, permanent resident cards, tribal IDs, foreign passports, and then there are a couple of other things. But the easiest check of them all, if your driver's license has a star or a special symbol in the top corner, you're good. So if you're a Georgia driver with a valid license, you probably have nothing to worry about. But the bottom line is check your ID now so that you don't have to pay extra and you don't get stuck in longer lines. Don't say I never did anything for you. More details can be found about this on fox5atlanta.com. But in the meantime, safe travels.
Okay, so that was pretty interesting because let's come over here. All right, this is from End Time Headlines, which also reported it. And I'm just going to let the website play in terms of reading from its audio so we can get some understanding. And then we're going to go into some a backstory that has led to this happening because, see, the water Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai for the apostles of Great Millstone, okay, that have been going into certain things behind the scenes of what these devils have been plotting and have been planning for many years. And you're going to see what I mean by that, okay, because we're going to tap into a documentation, a PDF file from the Rockefeller Foundation going back to 2010. And I'm going to show you how all of this was pretty much planned. Now, one of the things that she stated, I'm going to take back, was something in regards to what happened during a time of 9/11. So let me see if I can find that again. And you know what? Before I even do that, let's read this first, and then we're going to come back. All right. Let's see if this thing works.
TSA will begin charging $45 fee for air travelers without real ID. Travelers who still don't have their real ID and want to fly will soon be required to pay a fee to get to their gate at any airport across the country, including Phoenix Sky Harbor. On Monday, the Transportation Security Administration introduced TSA Confirm ID, a $45 service for travelers who lack an acceptable form of identification, such as those with a lost ID or without a real ID. The service fee, which goes into effect February 1st, covers the cost of new identity verification technology, which must be paid online before boarding, federal transportation officials said. TSA officials said that paying the fee does not guarantee verification, and travelers whose identities cannot be verified may be turned away. If approved, however, the verification covers a 10-day travel period. Other acceptable forms of ID include military IDs, permanent resident cards, and photo IDs from federally recognized tribal nations. TSA also accepts digital IDs through platforms such as Apple Wallet, Google Wallet, and Samsung Wallet at more than 250 airports in the U.S. Identity checks are vital for traveler safety because they keep bad actors out of the sky, said Adam Stahl, the senior official performing the duties of deputy administrator for TSA, in a written statement. The fee can be paid online before arriving at the airport. Travelers can also pay online at the airport before entering the security line, but officials said the process may take up to 30 minutes. The vast majority of travelers present acceptable identification like real IDs and passports, but we must ensure everyone who flies is who they say they are, Stahl said. Read more.
Okay, so there you have it. Now, going back to the video, she said something that kind of stood out to me, and I'm going to show you. Let's play this again.
If you're taking a trip soon and you have a flight, this one's for you. Traveling rules just changed and this one could cost you some money, so listen up. The Real ID deadline is finally here after years of delays, and now the TSA says if you show up at the airport without a real ID or another acceptable form of ID, it's going to cost you some extra money. So let's make it all simple. Real ID is a more secure version of your driver's license or state ID. It came from a 9/11 Commission recommendation that was signed into law back in 2005.
That part right there, a 9/11 Commission recommendation that was signed into law back in 2005. So what is she saying here? Well, basically, the year is 2025. So almost 20 years ago, or exactly 20 years ago, what she is alluding to is that this was already pre-planned. Okay. And the scripture says, let's get a precept now to start off the lesson. All right, Isaiah chapter 10 and verse 1. And it reads, "Woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees, and that write grievousness which they have prescribed." All right. So Esau has already had this in the works going back 20 years ago. Okay, and what do I mean by going back 20 years ago? Well, let's come over here now, because you have something that's called the Patriot Bill, okay, which I believe this came in around the time after 9/11. Now, watch this. It says the Patriot impacts personal identification within the U.S. by requiring financial institutions to collect and verify personal information to prevent terrorism and money laundering, and by expanding the government's ability to access records related to investigation. For an example, if mandates that when opening an account, financial institutions must collect and record a person's name, address, date of birth, and other identifying information to verify their identity. Now, to a person who's unlearned, you may read this and go, oh, that's really nothing to be overly concerned about, is because they just want to make sure that you're that actual person that you say you are in terms of opening an account. But what you're not paying attention is, as she stated in the video, which is leading to a digital lockstep, where they can basically control your every movement by identifying who you are and giving you green access to either travel or deny you access from not traveling. Because let's take it back.
Because if you show up at the airport without a real ID or another acceptable form of ID, it's going to cost you some extra money. So let's make it all simple. Real ID is a more secure version of your driver's license or state ID. It came from a 9/11 Commission recommendation that was signed into law back in 2005. Although there were multiple delays, it's now in effect. So
Right. And because what we just read, this was dealing with financial institutions, but you can see how this is now spilt over to not only financial institutions, but also government services. OK. And in order for you to access any type of government services, you're going to have to partake in this digital identification of a system. This is what people are not understanding. Now, to back this up even further, all right, let's come over here and we're going to take a look at this PDF file. Now, this is a PDF file entitled Scenarios for the Future of Technology and International Development. And this is a 2010 documentation from the Rockefeller Foundation that they ended up publishing online. It's just the fact that many people don't know that it's actually published because it is well hidden, and it is hidden for a reason. But we're going to show you that this was long in the works, right? That is leading us to this very time and end time prophecy dealing with Revelation chapter 13, verses 16 to 18. So I'm going to just jump straight to the point. We're going to get to the overall view here in their scenario, which is right here. Now, notice this is their chart that from the left, if you start from the left hand side, which is Lockstep, that's the current step that we're in. We're in between the Lockstep and the hack attack, because during the Lockstep, scenarios are being implemented around the world where they are causing the problem, whether it's a shutdown dealing with the power grid. Maybe there's an internet outage, right? They're causing these scenarios so that the people going into a panic stage can depend more on the government for their absolute control to pretty much track and trace the people. And then you have the hack attack. That's where the hack attack comes in, where they'll say that, oh, this has been the systems have been hacked. Somebody has hacked this, or the telecommunication systems was hacked, and this, that, and the third. All of these are scenarios that are being done on the left hand side through Esau Edom, OK, as he plays the role, which we say here, to plan the attack, or to, what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, problem, reaction, solution. OK, I think that's fair to say. You have a problem, which they create the problem. They wait on the reaction of the people. And then, according to Isaiah 10, they have rightly wrought out decrees that they already prescribed, meaning it was already in the works. They just needed the right scenario to play out in order for them to pretty much give that executive order to make the changes. This is why the scripture says, let's go to the book of you know what? Let's get this one I'm thinking of in Psalms. I think it's Psalms. It's either Psalms 94 or 96. Let me try 94 first. Right. This is Psalms chapter 94 at verse 20. It says, shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee, which frameth mischief by a law? Okay. So this is what they do. Let's get into different translation. The AMP says, can a throne of destruction be allied with you, one which frames and devises mischief by decree under the sacred name of law? You see that? So the mischief that they're now conjuring up, where they're trying to make it lawful across the land, is now you have to have a real digital ID, but they're not telling the people that prior to signing up to such of to such a thing is going to lead to them actually having total control over your whereabouts, where you're traveling to, giving you access or whatever the case may be, whether you can enter into a certain destination or not, which also goes into the 15-minute smart cities, which they are currently building as we speak. And then also when the economy crashes and the dollar goes digital, they're going to put everybody on what's called a UBI system, which is, known to be universal basic income. All right. So then the people are sleeping, man. That, you got certain, Americans waking up that are being hip to this and stuff like that. But the majority of Americans, you through. OK, you are through. All right. So let's come back here. And then I want to show you something. So as you go into Lockstep, this is one of the narratives that's currently being played out in our time. It says a world of tighter top-down government control and more authoritarian leadership with limited innovation and growing citizens' pushback, because they already suspect that is going to be a huge pushback, okay, which is going to lead to civil unrest, okay, which is also prophesied in the Bible. OK, it's all, that civil unrest is going to turn into civil war. Right. This is why a lot of the elites are starting to make their way into those bunkers, because all hell is going to break loose. And they know that World War III is on the edge of the seat right now, because Vladimir Putin just gave Europe a warning that they're ready for war. OK, so everything is playing out through prophecy. Right. But check this out. So when we go into Lockstep, technology and Lockstep, it says, while there is no way of accurately predicting what the important technological advancements will be in the future, the scenario narratives point to areas where conditions may enable or accelerate the development of certain kind of technologies. Thus, for each scenario, we offer a sense of the context for technological innovation, taking into consideration the pace, geography, and key creators. We also suggest a few technology trends and applications that could flourish in each scenario. Technological innovation in Lockstep is largely driven by government and is focused on issues of national security and health and safety. This is why Trump is pushing for that real ID. OK, because it goes back to national security, which under the former administration, known as the Biden administration, what did he do? He was the one under his administration that allowed for all of those so-called illegal immigrants to come into the country. That was setting the stage for the Trump administration to come in and said, hey, that was the problem. We saw the reaction to the people. And now guess what? We have the solution to the problem, and we're going to stay afloat with the technology and the data that we have collectively collected over the years. And through process of elimination, this is what we're going to do, because we're going to make America great again. And it's all disguised under that. But what people don't understand is they're being duped. You see, because it's all in the guise of national security and health and safety. They need to be able to see if you are a threat, this, that, and the third. Right. And people are falling for it. So it says most technological improvements are created by and for developed countries, shaped by governments' dual desire to control and to monitor their citizens. Let me read that part again. Dual desire to control and to monitor their citizens. OK, and essentially, when you break down the word government, gov meaning to control, ment goes back to mental state, your mind. So it means literally to control the mind. OK, And Esau's doing a hell of a job by controlling the masses of the people by feeding onto them through enchantments, okay, witchcraft, spells, and stuff like that through their mainstream media, putting out enchantments of words, saying the same shit over and over, okay? All of these sort of things, man. It says, in states with poor governance, large-scale projects that fail to progress abound. So it gives you an example, technology trends and applications we might see. Scanners using advanced functional magnetic resonance imaging technology become the norm at airports and other public areas to detect abnormal behavior that may indicate antisocial intent. We already see this going on in China right now. I did a lesson a few days ago or about a week or so ago, tapping into China's system that Australia ended up reporting on. And then they claimed that Australia is a little bit far behind on that technology. And we don't have no indication as to if that technology is actually going to come here on our shores. But best believe this is going to be implemented globally, because within that same video, I also showcased that Klaus Schwab from the WEF, he stated that the world can pretty much learn a thing or two from China's system, because China has that very implementive system known as the social credit score system. Okay. So for those of you who don't know how that system actually looks, basically with all of the facial recognition cameras, CCT cameras that are posted up in certain cities and blocks and stuff like that, if you are within a certain distance, the camera can pick you up. And when it can solely identify you, it'll be a green square, right? But the moment your face is turned away from the camera, or if you're too close to another individual, that green square box quickly changes to red, which means that it cannot identify you, right? But then the dangers of that system is when you add AI technology to it, AI now has the power to, it can pretty much pick on you and say if you was in the wrong of doing something, and it'll fine you, or if you were not in the wrong of doing something. So this is the dangers of the beast system that we're currently in right now, because we're already in it. It's just how they want to implement it. It goes on to say, in the aftermath of pandemic scares, smarter packaging for food and beverages is applied first by big companies and producers in a business-to-business environment, and then adopted for individual products and consumers. It says new diagnostics are developed to detect communicable diseases. The application of health screening also changes. Screening becomes a prerequisite for release from a hospital or prison. So imagine what that's going to be like. Okay. Again, think about the dangers of artificial intelligence playing a role, because let's say you could be good, but the AI can detect something different. This is why the godfather of AI, I forget his name, but he left Google. He said, look, it's getting to the point now where the AI can override your decision. And if you think something was good or whatever, they can override it and think that it's bad and then cast you aside as being the evil one. So imagine you being diagnosed by your doctor or whatever, and then they use this AI technology to go through a prerequisite that can release you from either a hospital or the state prison. You see, it says successfully slowing the spread of many diseases, and that's the whole reason why we had the 2020 fiasco that took place, where you had to get a digital barcode. Remember, not Klaus Schwab, but Yuval Harari. He was the one that advocated by saying, never let a good crisis go to waste. So where they had everybody in a jiffy with that whole fiasco that played out in 2020, that was setting the stage to where we are here today. It says, telepresence technology respond to the demand for less expensive, lower bandwidth, sophisticated communication systems for populations whose travel is restricted. It says, lastly, driven by protectionism and national security concerns, nations create their own independent, regionally defined IT networks, mimicking China's firewalls. Governments have varying degrees of success in policing internet traffic, but these efforts nevertheless fracture the World Wide Web. Okay. Now, to pretty much add to that, what that last dot point is saying is basically the governments are taking control and they're implementing their own strategies to pretty much start policing everyone. So to give you an example, hopefully it'll work on this phone if I show you, but if I log into my YouTube Studio app, okay, let me see here. Okay, here we go right here. So they gave me the notification, right? Now, here it says, now this is currently in Australia. This is not in Babylon and Great America, okay? But notice it says here, YouTube access restrictions for users under 16 in Australia. Due to a new law in Australia, the minimum age required to sign into YouTube in Australia is 16. This means that starting on the 10th of December, 2025, users under 16 years old will be automatically signed out from YouTube. This includes any supervised preteen and teen accounts. We recognize this has important implications for users, and we encourage you to review your options below. So, Australia is taking a stance by implementing these strategies under the guise of we need to protect our children. So anybody that's under the age of 16 and younger, they will not be able to access things like YouTube, Snapchat, Facebook, and there was a list of other apps. Okay, so it's happening. As I've stated in other videos that I've done in the past, every country is different in terms of how they want to implement these digital changes. Okay, but the end goal is that when they are ready to mandate it, everybody at the end of the day is going to end up with a microchip inside of their right hand or their hand in general, or in their forehead dealing with the Neuralink. Because it will only make sense that nobody can hack you except for the government, because they'll have control over the big cloud once everybody is integrated in that cloud via the microchip. But they'll tell you that this is for the safety of you, and you will no longer have to carry a mobile phone, cell phone, whatever, a tablet or a key card or whatever the case may be. No, you can have all of that information in this little implantable device that can go within you. But the flip side to that is they don't tell you that they're going to be the ones to access your cloud, because they're going to have everything that is trackable and traceable. Right? So let me get one more example, and then we're going to get some precepts and close out. Because, yeah, I thought this was interesting. I think I went too far. But to show you, they knew exactly what was going on. Right? Now, I want to read here at the bottom. It says, by 2025, people seem to be growing weary of so much top-down control and letting leaders and authorities make choices for them. So in the last 10 years, because remember back in 2015, when they was having all of these TED Talks and going to Geneva or Switzerland or whatever to have these secretive meetings, they already knew, well, they were well aware that 10 years from now, that they was going to cause so much chaos to where they were going to start to wear the people down. And you can actually start to see that. That's why when they went ahead back a month or two ago, when they pretty much took away everybody's benefits, snaps and stuff like that, you saw how torn the people were. So much so that they were begging the government for a solution. And this is why you have to really, if you are in this truth, you have to really examine yourself and trust in Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. Do not trust in, the scripture says, not to put your trust in man. Right? Let's get that. All right. This is Psalms 118:8. It says it is better to trust in Yahweh than to put confidence in man, because see, man can change like the different moon phases. It tells you that a fool can change as a different moon phases, roughly paraphrasing, but Yahweh is the same forever. Yahweh changeth not. And so everybody is going to be duped, because as it says in Isaiah, the 30th chapter, woe unto them that go down for Egypt for help. Because you trust in the shadow of Egypt. You trust in Pharaoh. Modern day Pharaoh is Nero 47, Donald J. Trump. You see? But it says here back in the article, this PDF form, Salakia, it says on the other side, wherever national interests clashed with individual interests, there was conflict. And you currently see that right now. It says sporadic pushback became increasingly organized, okay, and coordinated. We have an example of that here in Australia. You have these Nazi whatever group. Then you have immigrants that have came in. They're rising up against the government because they want government assistance. They want more help. And then you have the Australians. All right, the Edomite Australians, they're raising up saying that they want their country back. They don't want the Islamic here and this, that, and the third. So there's a lot of pushback for organized and coordinated groups out here. It says, as disaffected youth and people who had seen their status and opportunity slip away, largely in developing countries, incited civil unrest. This is what we see happening, not just here in Australia, but we see it happening over there in the UK. We saw how Prime Minister Starmer said that people will not be able to return to work except they have a digital ID. Right now, Trump has said to the TSA that, hey, OK, people don't want to hop on this thing that we're doing. Make their ass pay a $45 fee. You got to understand the times that we're in. Measure thou the time diligently within itself. OK, let's get that real quick. OK, I believe that's 2nd Esdras 9:1. He answered me then and said, measure thou the time diligently in itself. And when thou seest part of the signs past, which I have told thee before, then shalt thou understand that it is the very same time wherein the highest will begin to visit the world which he made. And we're seeing the signs of the time, right? So then it goes into another scenario, which I'm eager to see how this is going to play out, because they said in 2026, protesters in Nigeria brought down the government. Now, they just named Nigeria as a particular place. Doesn't mean that they actually are going to go with Nigeria being the actual place in the continent of Africa where this actually takes place. It could be another African country where they actually take down the government. So that remains to be seen as of next year. But nevertheless, they're saying in this scenario that protesters in Nigeria brought down the government, fed up with the entrenched cronyism and corruption. Salakia, if I mispronounced that. It says, even those who like the greater stability and predictability of this world began to grow uncomfortable and constrained by so many tight rules and by the strictness of national boundaries. The feeling lingered that sooner or later, something would inevitably upset the neat order that the world's governments had worked so hard to establish. So I believe truly 2026 is going to be the year where all hell breaks loose. That's going to be the year where Edom is going to turn up the fire on the stove, and shit is about to start bubbling, like boiling out of control. Because remember, they have the Project 2030. So they pretty much got about 4 years left. Okay. They got 4 years left, man. So don't be surprised if these devils start really showing their horns come 2026. Right. And so it's because of that, scenario of a particular country. Like I said, even though they put Nigeria, I'm not saying that that's going to happen. They're just giving scenarios as to what they would like to see happen. So don't be surprised if next year you see a particular country whose citizens, through civil unrest, rises up to shut down a government, to cause chaos. Okay. And so all of this leads back to what we see here, going into having a real ID, because see, now they can start to identify people who have been causing problems and pushbacks. This is really what this is going into, if you have eyes to see and ears to hear. Okay, so let's get a few precepts and then close out. I want to get the book of 2 Corinthians 2:11. And it says, lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. Okay, and devices goes into his plans, his plotting, him scheming on things to get one over us. This is why the scripture says in Matthew 28 that we should always Matthew 26, I think it is, Salakia, and 40, right. This is Matthew 26 and 41. It says, watch and pray that ye enter not into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. You got to pay attention to what's going on, because you can get caught up out there trusting and believing in this devil, because now that he has total control over all the resources, which is another thing, because if you decide to take that MOTB just to save your life, like Yahushua said, he that saveth his life shall lose it, but he that loseth his life for my name's sake shall find it. Okay, part of you finding your life is you trusting in his system, because in order for you to participate within the beast system, you're going to have to take that chip. Esau is going to control all of the resources on the planet through the means of that chip, because you will not be able to buy and sell. So anything that you so desperately lack that turns into a transaction, you will not be able to transact unless you are chipped within the society. Hence why you should be praying that Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai sees you all the way through to endure all the way up until the end, to guide you. Right? As the scripture says, let's get that in 1 Corinthians, the first chapter, or actually, no, 1 Corinthians 10 and 13. I think that's the one I want. Right. It says, there have no temptation taken you but such as is common to man. But Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that ye are able, but will with the temptation also make a way to escape, that ye may be able to bear it. So with you being pressured to enter into such a system, just remember at the end of the day that Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai is with us if we truly trust in him and have faith. Because like the elder Yashawamba always says, you're going to have to step into some unbelievable faith when all hell breaks loose and they mandate that chip and they force everybody to get this digital ID. Because your digital ID will be in the form of that microchip. That's how they're going to identify you. That's the end goal. But we just read Yahweh through his son Yahweh Shai, with that same temptation, can easily make a way for you to escape. So you're going to have to stand 10 toes when this shit goes down, man. And you will be tested beyond measure. But he just said, okay, he's not going to, suffer you to be tempted above that which you are not able to get through. So all of us are going to have different measures of faith during that day. But you have to really trust and dig deep and not be afraid. The scripture says in Wisdom of Solomon about fear, right? Because it's been a while since I brought this out. Let me see. Wisdom of Solomon. Let me see. Let me type this in. Yeah, Wisdom of Solomon 17 and 12. For fear is nothing else but a betraying of the securest which reason offered. In other words, you only fear because you don't really trust in the person that said that they was going to help you, because you fear where the help is going to come. So this is why you see a lot of the brothers, they always say, make sure you are in good standing with Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua. And you do that by praying, fasting, reading. Dedicate yourself to reading. Because the more you read, the more you start to tap into that spirit on relying and trusting in Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua. Okay? You know, Elder Yashawama from GMS Dallas speaks about it all the time. Get into the habit of thanking Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua. Wait, the first thing you should do in the morning is, as soon as you get up, before you do anything, even before you look on your phone, pray. It's the little things that we take for granted. The scripture says pray without ceasing, man. You have to constantly be in prayer. You know? Let's get Psalms 37 and 7, one of my favorites. It says, rest in Yahweh. And how do you rest in Yahweh? Okay? By you rest in Yahweh by taking heed to this word. Because the scripture says in Isaiah 33 and 6, wisdom and knowledge should be the stability of thy time. So your stableness comes from knowing this truth. There's another scripture in the New Testament that talks about take rest with us, roughly paraphrasing, right? You rest in knowing this truth because this is your hope. It says, rest in Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua and wait patiently for him. Fret not thyself because of him who prospereth in his way, because of the man who bringeth wicked devices to pass. And this is a wicked device that's coming to pass, whether you like it or not. Okay? So you have to understand, again, the times that we're in. So we're going to end it with this, because this is the times we're in. Revelation 13 and 16. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond. Doesn't matter what your status is here on the planet Earth, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. That mark goes into a charagma, which is the Greek word, which really means an incision or graving image. Okay. It says, verse 17, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark of the name of the beast or the number of his name, which lets us know that this is a physical mark that without it, you will not be able to transact within this society. So you physically are going to have to take something. Verse 18, here is wisdom. Let him that have understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 636, which we go into that in the breakdown. Is that when you go into the Greek word and you look up the word stigma, it literally means to prick the skin, which back then in the ancient world, when they had slaves, they used to bore their slaves by pricking them or branding them. Now, the Bible speaks about there is no new thing under the sun. So what they did back then, they're going to do all again today. The difference is it's enhanced through technology. So what's going to be the ultimate branding through this digital society? You will have to receive a microchip. That is your way of being branded within Esau's beast system. Okay. So that's pretty much it. You know, I pray that this lesson was edifying, straight to the point. And I want to give all praise, glory, and honor be to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Rakah HaKodash. Double honors once again to the beloved apostles and elders of Great Millstone, better known as GMS, who rule well. Peace and salutations unto the hopeful elect, the tabernacle of David. All right. And it's on to the next. Ashar Shabbath. Shalom.